Hey folks, Tim Freitas here from the Garden of English. We're going to continue our little mini-series on AP Lit things. Today we're going to look at body paragraphing. So without further ado, I'll pull up our reading selection, which comes from the 2010 Form B, and that is Cherry Bomb. If you haven't read this yet, what we do here is not going to make a lot of sense, so I encourage you to read it. Now, just as a quick review, in the first video we talked about breaking down the prompt. I would like to just make one note about the 2020 exam. You will not have the title of the piece or the author. So what you're going to do is, instead of putting title, you'll just say in the piece, and then you'll call the author, and that's okay. But you'll still be able to get some background information from the prompt, and you'll still be able to create this conquer question. And make sure that you create this question before you read the piece, because it reminds you why you need to read the piece. And you want to answer it based on what you know from the text, and then you want to relate it to universal ideas, more in video 1. If you haven't watched it, I encourage you to do so. In the last video, we talked about outlining while we read, and if we do so with this little organizer that I presented, you'll actually have your topic sentences already. This middle column here is all we need to actually put into a thesis statement. So we would use this column here, and we would tie it with our answers that show up in this column from our organizer, and we can get a well-developed thesis. And if you want to check that out, you can go to video 2 for that. So today we're going to assume that you know what the thesis looks like and that you know what the topic sentences look like. And I do have templates for your topic sentences here, okay? And today we're going to talk about body paragraphs. Now, I have a template for body paragraphs here, and you're going to notice that my example is a little different in the topic sentence, but that's okay, because my topic sentence still has the parts, and that's the important part. Now, our prompt tells us that we have to analyze. So when you need to analyze something, you need to do 3 things. The first thing you need to do is you need to identify. The second thing you need to do is you need to break down, and the third thing you need to do is explain how. And that's what analysis entails. This body paragraph does exactly that. In my topic sentence, you'll see right here, I'm going to identify what and why, and that's going to be what is the author doing, the literary element or technique, and why is it happening. And that why answer is going to be taken from the in-text answer that shows up right up here in this box, okay? So we're going to pull down the part that relates to that. We then have the next part, which is textual evidence, which is breaking down where it's seen in the text. And then we have our analysis, which is our commentary. And this is when we explain how this evidence that we put in here actually conveys the textual understanding that we have. And I have a template for that right here as well. So what I want to do is I want to quickly walk you through a body paragraph that a student of mine wrote that used the basis of this template in order to provide what would be considered a strong commentary and a strong body paragraph. Okay. Now you're going to notice that the topic sentence here does deviate from the template just a little bit, but that's okay because it still has all of the right parts. Furthermore, this student did indeed use the templates that I provided for the topic sentence stems right here. And so although there's things that are organized a little bit differently, all the parts are there, so we can consider that this is a extremely good model to show you what's going on here. So anyway, without further ado, let's look at our topic sentence. This is going to come from body paragraph 2. That means that in our thesis, I am going to use the second strategy here. So we're going to assume that body paragraph 1 was already written, and now we have our second literary element. And so we have describes an arduous journey to a sentimental treasure. Okay, so we're going to pull that straight down and we're going to put it kind of into this same model here, where it would be lit element, okay, or technique number, okay. And you're going to notice that our topic sentence says the narrator then shifts to describing an arduous journey to a sentimental treasure. So notice it's going to come right down from the thesis, okay, showcasing her naively adventurous mindset and the process's symbolic relationship to tracing back memories. Now, I've highlighted these two, this sentence up here, and the reason why is because this language in blue is going to be the evidence that I have to put in my paragraph. I have a really strong verb here, which is showcasing, and then I have 2 ideas that come from the thesis. One of them is it's her naively adventurous mindset. And that's going to relate to what it says in our thesis, where we have the narrator's childhood is blissful and naive and adventure. So notice I'm just pulling that idea right down. And I also say that this process is symbolic to the relationship of tracing back memories. Now, tracing back memories for someone does indeed bring about nostalgia. And so because of that, you see that I'm clearly working within the umbrella of my thesis here. So what happens next is after we fill in this template here, okay, and like I said, I did use a little bit of a varied template from right here, but it still has the same pieces, okay, we're going to move over to our evidence. Now you're going to see here that in the template itself, it says, take, for example, how, and that's crossed out. And the reason why is because you don't actually need to put that in your paper unless you don't know an example comes after your topic sentence. If you have a hard time remembering that an example has to come right after your topic sentence, write the words, take, for example, how. And the reason why is because that's a discourse marker that will force you to put an example in. However, you're going to notice that I have the word after, and then it says insert context and textual evidence that shows the literary strategy from the topic sentence or the literary technique or the literary element. Okay, so we're going to put in our textual evidence. According to this, I have to put in the arduous journey to a sentimental treasure. So I will do so right now. And so if you notice here, I have take, for example, how. After she details a youthful misunderstanding, that's the context, he talks about the hairy man, the narrator remembers the complex path to her strong-smelling cigar box, that's her sentimental treasure, that would require someone to close her eyes, hold her hands up over her head, while placing one foot in front of the other, just waiting to touch the smooth, cool, slanted plaster so she could bend down and feel around on the floor. And you'll notice that all of what's blue in here is textual evidence and summary of what's going on in the story, and it's all about that stressful, or not stressful, but strenuous process to get to this little cigar box here. So all of what's mentioned in blue is a breakdown of where we see this description of an arduous journey to a sentimental treasure. Okay? And you'll notice that my textual evidence flows, and that's something that's really important. You cannot tell where my words end and the text itself actually begins, besides the fact that you see quotation marks. So you know that you've integrated your text well if you've got short little snippets of text, no more than 9 words at a pop, and then your words in between that allow it to flow. So the last thing that we need to do is we need to provide commentary. And the way that you do this is mentioned right here. It says, mention language from the text that you plan on focusing on, take your verb from the topic sentence, take your answer to the textual understanding from the topic sentence, so in this case it's going to be a naive and adventurous mindset, or a symbolic relationship tracing back to memories, okay? And then what you're going to do is you're going to put the word because right after that. So we're going to say, mentioning this showcases her naive mindset because, or mentioning blah, 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 showcases or symbolizes how this is like accessing memories because. And then what we're going to do is we're going to explain how the evidence itself that we just put in our paper reveals that effect, reveals that understanding. And the way that we want to do that is by choosing precise verbs. So the best verbs we can pick. We want to focus on explaining word connotations. That's the emotional baggage that are tied with words. And we want to articulate stereotypical assumptions that are tied to images. And you're going to see that I actually do that in my analysis. So we have this whole description, and you'll notice that this is blue because it's referring back to all of the language in here. This whole description showcases, I pulled that straight down, it's a powerful verb, the childish nature. Notice that that relates directly to naively adventurous mindset. This whole description showcases the childish nature of the narrator because. This because word is so important. The sentence that comes after your textual evidence has to have the word because in it, because this is going to force you to actually articulate your analysis. Most of the time students are just saying, it obviously shows that. No, it's not obvious. Break it down why it's obvious and how this language functions. This word because will help you to do so. Or any cause and effect language. There are other options up here. Because, due to, since, so, consequently, etc. As we continue, this whole description showcases the childish nature of the narrator because, rather than simply putting a box under a bed or in a nightstand, like any normal person would do, so please note that this simple element here, I can highlight this in yellow because, quite frankly, that is a stereotype of what people would normally do. She develops a complex method, that refers to the language up here, to access an item protected by the legend of the hairy man. So notice what's happening here is I've got these strong verbs. The word legend is showcasing the connotation of what the hairy man is, okay? And that makes it seem more childish. And as we continue, it says the legend of the hairy man who, quite mistakenly, was someone traumatized by war. Now look at this sentence. It's got excellent verbs in here. It refers back to the language that's in the quote, and it combines all of that language with the ideas from the topic sentence. So we are going in the right direction here. In this case, like any child, she overcomplicates a process for added security when not many people would really be searching for her box. Notice what's highlighted in yellow. These are common stereotypes. So any language that's in yellow like this is me articulating a stereotypical assumption. Okay? Furthermore, the detailed process that is required to get the box, once again referring to the blue language up here, symbolizes the struggle to preserve her beloved childhood. Now that relates right to the relationship of tracing back memories. Once she has reached adulthood, since, so instead of saying because more than once, I now use the word since, it's quite a labor to return to those times of innocence once a person has been corrupted by the pains of the adult world. That, once again, is a stereotype. It's a common assumption. But she remembers the way. Having the box described as a storage place of private things highlights that what is treasured there contrasts the grueling reality of adulthood. Instead, these private things remind her of the joy of her carefree and actually quite dangerous summer mischief. And you'll notice here that I have these strong verbs all throughout my piece, which are going to help with the analysis. And at the very end, there are some italics right down here. And the reason why is because this is going to help transition to our last topic sentence, which is the narrator finishes by downplaying a dangerous encounter. And you'll notice here that I'm mentioning that this is the joy of her carefree and even quite dangerous summer mischief. So I'm transitioning right in there. So I'm thinking about transitions as well. And that's really how it's done, folks. I'm going to make another video for AP Lit and AP Lane that just talks about commentary in general, so we can really try to get the idea of articulating assumptions and connotations and verbs to be a little bit more clear. But I don't want to go over 15 minutes with videos like this. But here's your example. And if you go back and look at the document that you can download right from the link below the video, you can actually trace through exactly what I did. And the color code is right here. Precise verbs are in pink. The light blue are word connotations. The assumptions are in yellow. And then the idea from the topic sentence and the understanding from the topic sentence will be in green that we trace it down the whole time. And then the symbolic relationship, which is another idea, we trace down as well. And so it's highlighted in that way. As always, thank you for supporting the Garden of English. Remember that sharing is caring. You can support in many ways. You can purchase a t-shirt. You can just share the video. You can like the video or do anything of that nature. Thank you for your support as always. And I hope any of this helps. Have a great day.